Hello my friends, today's video is going to be a blonde service and we're going to be doing a blended blonde look. So if this is something you struggle with, then stay tuned. Or you just want to watch along. This is also for you. For today's service, I'm going to be using Schwarzkopf Blonde Me with 20 volume and Olaplex. To start the service off, we're going to be going around my client's face and doing her hairline foils. She does like to have a more bold money piece and brightness around her face. So I am going in here a little bit heavier handed than just some softer baby lights. We're also going to be tapping her roots to soften it up because she wants to be able to let her hair grow out without feeling like she has to come in soon. So no matter how heavy we're doing it around her hairline, if we're doing streaks or weaves or slices or whatever, we're going to be going through and just tapping her root and softening it up. So going in back to back and a little bit heavier is okay because in the end we're going to smudge her root a little bit to just soften it up. This is a first-time client. I was really happy to have her in my chair. I was kind of nervous because you never know. Blondes are so particular sometimes that, it might take a time or two or three times even to really get into the groove of the service and to really understand what the client wants. So I was really worried because she wasn't wanting to brighten up through her ends anymore. She is happy being at, a level 9, which you'll see when I go through and pull her foils a little bit later that her roots lifted lighter than the ends of her hair, which was kind of stressing me out because I'm used to the brightest blondes and whatever. So it was kind of hard for me to do the service because I felt like I wasn't getting her bright enough. But the reality is she didn't want to be brighter. She was happy where she was at and she just wanted to blend what she had. So that's something when you're doing blondes, really ask them how light do they want to be. Don't always assume that they're going to want to be the brightest blonde, especially now that we're coming into fall. Having more of a lived in, toned down blonde is definitely what people are looking for. So we're going through and doing her money piece brighter still because even though blondes want to be a little bit rootier and maybe be a little bit more blended and a little bit more low maintenance and lived in, they still want to feel nice and brighter on their face and feel like brighter blonde is the first thing that they see. And when they pull their hair back, they have, a nice bright hairline instead of just feeling when blonde grows out and then they just see the dark roots slicked back and then they just feel dark all over. So making sure you give them a nice bright money piece, even if the rest of them is kind of toned down, they will be happy because it's bright on their face and that will make them feel a little bit better. But back to the intention of the service is she didn't want to brighten through the ends, which I thought I was maybe going to go through and paint through the ends to brighten them up a little bit more, but she was happy with where they're at. She just feels like she has a really harsh line of demarcation, which she does, and maybe she got a really solid full foil last time, I don't really know, but she just wants to maintain her roots for the most part for what she has, also maintain the blonde that she has and still feel like she's a blonde, but just a little bit more lived in at this time. So going through and doing her highlights the way we will, and then doing a root shadow is going to help blend the blonde that she currently has, eliminate that line of demarcation and blend it out with the root shadow. You'll see when I get to her money piece that sorry, her money piece. You'll see when I get to the top of her forehead that I'm going from where the side foils connect to the money piece at the top of her forehead instead of going just from like straight down the center mohawk. And the reason why is because she has a very angular hairline. Her hairline is not straight across at the top where you might be able to just go straight down the center and then have it connect to the side foils, which unless somebody has a very, very small face, a very small head, very small hairline, generally you can't have like one foil just stretch across the whole center of their forehead and then connect to the sides. And what happens is then you have these dark corners on the sides of their forehead. And then when you pull their hair back, they feel like they're bright right at the temple, bright across their forehead. But then these edge pieces are really dark because they don't have the foil that connects all the way around the whole hairline. So for me, I like to go do the temples, like the sides of the hairline that I just did. And then now that we're in the forehead area, I like to go from the center out to the edge to connect to the side hairline foils. And that's going to give her even brightness all the way across her forehead. So that way when she pulls her hair back, she's going to have an even brightness all the way around. She's not going to feel like she has these like dark holes like at the sides of her forehead. She's going to feel like she's nice and bright. Another thing also is if I was just to go straight down the center, which I don't want to say she has a widow's peak because she doesn't, but just she does have a little bit more angular square of or I guess it's kind of like a triangular, kind of comes to a point in the center, but it just doesn't dip down low like a widow's peak. But if I was just to foil it straight down the center, then I would just be getting the tip of that angle there at the center, and then it would just be like literally the world's smallest money piece because it would just be the very tip of the center. It wouldn't like extend out, or you'd have to pack in like probably 5 or 6 to get all the way across to the other side. So this way I like to just do from the center out to the other side, and like you can see now I'm connecting it on the other side of her forehead too. You're gonna see me go through once I've got like these standard foils done for her money piece. I'm gonna go through and do a few back combed foils because I don't want to go too far back in the money piece where she feels like it's just a huge chunk, like a strap of blonde. I want her to have like that defined brightness directly on her hairline. But the next few foils that you see that I'm doing here, I'm just doing some weaves and then I'm back combing it, and that's going to create a little bit of a cushion. So that way it's a little bit more of a blended foil that I'm doing. And instead of just being like bright all the way to the scalp, it's going to be kind of like a nice cushion. So that way it helps blend the money piece to the rootier part of her hairline instead of just being like strappy blonde bright money piece and then dark crown. This is gonna help give it like a nice blend from brighter blonde into like softening of the crown area. I feel like that was a lot of talking. Did I overwhelm you? I hope not. Okay, I got ahead of myself earlier, but this is where I was talking about when I'm going to start doing some back comb foils to help blend from the money piece through like the blended crown and the lived in color with the darker roots. All right, now that I have around her face done, I have all that detailed work done. We're going to start going through and doing her foils through the rest of the back section and top of her hair. People ask me sometimes that why do I do around the hairline first when that's usually like the finest hair and it processes the fastest. And the reason is because I really like to know exactly that I can do the detailed work that I want to do around the hairline. There's a lot of times where I think I know the angle in which I'm going to foil around the hairline depending on how her hairline is. Sometimes, you foil at more of an angle. Sometimes you foil directly like straight up and down. It really depends on the client's hairline. And sometimes I will go through, this was like before when I used to not foil the hairline first. I would pull a section aside and leave it, for me to do the very last. And then I couldn't get my foils angled the way that I wanted to because I had the foils in the back section blocking the angle in which I needed to work that worked best for my client's hairline. And so I just decided that the first thing that I need to do is just do the foils around the hairline first. That way I can know that I'm getting exactly the right amount of the correct angle that I need to do my application. I'm going back as far as I want to go with my hairline foils. So if it's something that you're worried about, then you don't have to do your foils around the hairline first. But I've never had a problem where I've melted a client's hairline foils because they're so fine and they process the fastest that, oh my God, what the hell did I just do? I should have done this last, because I check my foils regularly, and if I need to pull them, I will. All you have to do is just get a towel and rub the bleach out, and it will stop the process and you'll be good. So everybody do what you want to do. Sometimes I will go through and use like a 7 volume developer, but I just feel like it leaves them at like still too warm sometimes. It's a lot slower than the 20, and then I'm like panicking because it's not lifting as fast as what I need it to. So yeah, that's why I like doing it around the hairline first to start. Sometimes if I'm doing like a super heavy full foil, what I will do is I will start in the very back at the nape of the neck. I'll work up the whole back section of the hair first. And then I usually have a little bit of bleach that's left over, and it's pretty much died off because it's been sitting there for like an hour or whatever. Then I'll go through and do my hairline foils at that point because I still have a whole like super heavy detailed work that I need to do on the sides and the top of the head. And so I can use that foil around the hairline and know that it'll be fine to still sit there for an extra long time because the bleach is so died off and slow. The power is gone. It's going to process really slowly. So there's so many different ways to like foil the hair and what kind of bleach to use and when to use it or whatever, but just do what you think is best for you and your clients. And if you are using a stronger bleach around the hairline, make sure you check the foils and make sure you're not overlapping. I try really hard not to overlap, so that's another thing. That's why I don't have like problems with my clients. They don't have any breakage because I make I make for certain that I'm not overlapping the bleach. So that also plays a factor into it. But anyways, people ask me that a lot, and so I just wanted to clear that up. So we're going to go through still, and I'm doing her foils. I'm just doing a weave, back combing them, and then blending up into her root. Again, she wants to be lived in, so I'm trying to take the foils as tight to the scalp as I can with that back comb in there, because we are going to go through and do a root shadow. Some people like will say, well, if you're just going to darken the foils up and cover them up anyways, like, why are you going through and doing highlights? And the reason is because even if somebody wants to have more of a lived in blonde or a low maintenance color, that doesn't mean that they don't want to see any definition or dimension in their hair. They just want to still be toned down and darker of a blonde, but still see some like pieciness and some highlights through the hair, but just not as bright as what maybe they normally would. So that's the reason why, yeah, you could easily go through and just apply, a color melt and blend out the roots that are there, but she probably would still not be happy because she's going to see like all these dark roots with like no dimension through it. So you'll see at the very end of the service how even though she's definitely a lot more toned down, you can still see a lot of dimension through her roots that blend into her natural color, and she's still going to be able to go a long time without having to worry about grow out because of that back comb softening up the root area. She's going to grow out a lot easier than the previous color that she did, where it's just like a heavy line of demarcation. Another thing that people ask me is how come I don't section my clients? I section my clients. I probably don't section my clients the way you would section your clients. And so therefore you look at my clients and think that they just look messy and they don't look sectioned, but they are sectioned in the way that works for me. I do not like sectioning clients in like, the standard 4 or 5, the quadrants or whatever, because I feel like that puts you in a box. Now you can only do your application in that box of how you already have your section planned out. It doesn't give you the freedom to move around the hair and put the foils in how you want to and whatever. So I also like going, I like going back and forth, do my application, maybe pop a few foils in on one side, then go and pop a few foils on the other side, and then back and forth and whatnot. And doing sections like that would be annoying, because who wants to sit there and have to like clean up their section every time and pin the hair perfectly back up into a nice and tidy section just for 30 seconds later to have to like break it back down again and refoil that. You know what I mean? I like to go back and forth because I don't want to do one whole side of the head and then now it's completely processed and I haven't even started the other side. I want to do a few here on this side, a few on the other side, and then that will give them time to lighten evenly together. And then when I get to the very top, I can get a fresh bowl of bleach, and I know that this is going to speed up and match the rest of the hair because it's a fresh bowl. And then I can also like put a towel on to insulate it to get it to process a little bit faster too. So there's a method to my madness, and maybe other people don't see it or understand it, but it works for me. So that's why I generally don't section my clients in the standard way of maybe what you guys would do. I definitely will like part the hair and pin it aside, but I definitely don't go through beforehand and section my clients out. That's a waste of time to me. All right, here's her full application. And we didn't want to brighten the ends, so I didn't go through and paint the ends. But you're going to see here how much brighter her roots are compared to the ends of her hair. Ooh, that gives me anxiety, but she didn't want the ends brighter, so I couldn't go through and paint them. Okay, so nice and bright, and then there's her darker ends again. And we're going to do her root shadow with Schwarzkopf Agora Vibrance. I'm doing equal parts 7-1 and 7-00. That's a natural with a little bit of ash to it to cool it down because she doesn't want to be too warm. So I'm going to go through and I hit up the whole perimeter of her hair. I know I didn't show that, but I did the whole perimeter of her hair and her like where she parts her hair. I did my application there first. That's going to start processing, and it's going to be a little bit darker in those areas. Once I have my whole perimeter done, I'm going to go through and I'm just going to start applying the first like few inches of the foils. I don't really want to drop it down that far yet because I want to make sure that this is like it has a nice melt to it. I don't want to have to use like 2 or 3 different colors, but if you apply your toner in a way where you're not just doing the full application at once, then you can get your toner, because it's processing at different increments, to fade nicely and look like you've used multiple tones when really it was just one bowl the whole time. But you've just, gone through and did your roots first, and now it's processing longer. It's going to deposit a little bit more. And then maybe that's been sitting for 10 minutes by the time you go through and start doing like the 2 inches of her roots. That's going to start being, a little bit softer because it's not going to process as long. And then by the time we start like mushing it down throughout like the midsection, that's going to have an even softer blend because it's not been sitting even quite as long at all, probably just like the last few minutes. So her hair is going to have a nice like gradient of darker in the very top root section to a nice flow of blending brighter through the ends. And for her root shadow in her money piece, I'm just going through and just ever so slightly tapping the root of her money piece. I'm not going to be combing it down. I'm just tapping it, sectioning it again, and then tapping it again. So that's all we're doing. I'm not trying to bring it down far at all. I'm just trying to very lightly blend her roots. So you can see there's a little bit of shadow there in her money piece, and then a really nice blend through the back section. And here it is a little bit more dry, but see what I mean when I say people, yeah, I could have just gone through with the root shadow, but doing those highlights through the crown area, even though we went darker, like it broke up her roots enough to give her some nice dimension. So here's her before, just super heavy line of demarcation. She feels really dark in the root area, and she wants to make sure that it feels a little bit more blended. And here we are. Look at that after. She's beautiful. Darker at the very top of the roots, and then it gradually lightens and flows nicely through like the midsection to the ends. And that's because of the way that we did our application. With just one bowl of toner. And look at how pretty that blend is from the money piece through the crown area. Everything looks so nice. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.